The Armada, which stretched over the depths of space like a massive swarm of ships, was the Galactic Empire's fleet that reached the solar system. The commanding officers on board the flagship looked at each other, metal and fire. Their faces were full of serene assurance. They had seen innumerable species before, many of them superior to humans on Earth in terms of technology, and each time they triumphed. This mission was no different in their perspective, since humanity was still a relatively new race in the galaxy. The Empire viewed Earth as an underdeveloped, remote area that only touched the surface of the galaxy's actual might, a solitary world among countless, protected by rudimentary defenses and small fleets, hardly more than a blip on the radar. It was evident from the intelligence reports that mankind had only lately started exploring the stars. And although they had displayed moments of inventiveness, their strategies and technology were naively simple. The seasoned veterans of several conquests who commanded the Empire could not imagine these people posing any genuine danger. They thought they would win, and their ranks were brimming with a smug sense of dominance within the Empire's fleet. It was clinically prepared, and commands were passed down with efficiency, with military accuracy, as the battleships readied their bombers, fighters, and tactical systems. They waited for the command to hit. The Empire's doctrine was straightforward: overpower, destroy, and move on. Diplomacy? To them, the inevitable surrender of humanity was but a formality, a last, degrading blow. From their observation decks, the Empire's officials observed the human ships and their overwhelming power. Eventually, a dispersed, seemingly haphazard pattern emerged on their sensors, standing in sharp contrast. To the commanders, the Imperial fleets combined might appear to be a pitiful attempt to muster a defense. Human ships lacked the menacing mass of the Empire's enormous warships and were more compact, smaller. Commanders grinned at one another, laughing at these people's foolishness in attempting resistance. It seemed as if, with a single command, the Empire's fleet charged forward, and Earth's defenders, who had not yet realized the gravity of the situation, moved as one cohesive, unstoppable force. But rather than confronting the human ships head-on, they started to recede, nearly completely, as though in terror. This was precisely what the Empire's commanders had anticipated. They thought this would demonstrate human frailty. The Empire pushed harder, bringing the human fleet closer and closer to the center of the solar system. But humanity continued to evade direct conflict. During the retreat, which the Empire saw as a last-ditch effort to delay the inevitable, there was something odd about the humans' movement. They appeared to be leading the Empire's ships into a particular path, sliding just out of range. The commanders dismissed it as chance or incapacity, certain of their numerical and technological advantage. But, as time went on, and the Empire's fleet moved deeper into the system, eerie ideas started to germinate. A pattern was emerging in the movement of the human ships, which quietly, almost unconsciously, directed the Empire's fleet. It seemed as though humans were playing a different game, targeting a certain area when the Empire had not expected it. A small number of officers expressed concerns, but their superiors suppressed them, claiming there was no reason to be careful after all. This was humanity. They were interacting with a species that had only managed to survive on a comparatively mild planet. Blinded by their own pride, they pressed ahead, certain in their ability to perceive the precise and measured movements of the human fleet. It wasn't until the human ships started to converge in a single line that they were satisfied they had the advantage. The humans had regrouped and appeared to be surrounded. When the Empire's commanders paused, the Empire viewed this as a last act of desperation, because it had nowhere else to go. In an effort to make a final stand before being destroyed, the commanders readied their ships to confront every ship with weapons ready to destroy this final line of defense. However, the humans remained still, their ships lining up in a manner that, in the view of the Empire, seemed like a united front, as though they were an empire themselves, rather than dispersing or continuing their retreat. In anticipation of something, the Empire's fleet closed in, assured of their victory, ready to unleash the destructive firepower on the tiny human fleet. Then, with a single, silent command, the human fleet activated the last phase of their strategy. Unexpectedly, drones that had been lying in wait began to activate around the Empire's fleet. As these drones surrounded them in all directions, the Empire's sensors flashed with brilliance. Armed with plasma mines, these drones were ready to explode. The Empire's ships, now precisely where the humans wanted them, were ensnared in an imperceptible web of destruction. The Empire's once unbreakable confidence shattered as the true genius of humanity's strategy was revealed. Project Firestorm was triggered, and the plasma mines detonated, consuming the Empire's ships in a devastating firestorm. Their escape route was cut off, and the Imperial fleet descended into chaos. Commanders frantically looked for a way out, but it was too late. They had been lured, encircled, and abandoned to face annihilation with no chance of escape. The Empire's mighty fleet was now a smoking ruin. Their pride had blinded them to the meticulous precision with which the human fleet had guided them into this deadly trap. What they had dismissed as desperation was revealed to be humanity's strategic brilliance. The galaxy would never forget this day, the day humanity turned the tides on one of the mightiest empires known. Despite the great difficulties, defiance is a sign of strength in the galactic. However, the Empire refused to accept this defeat at its central command high. Military strategists and high-ranking king officials had lengthy sessions to examine every aspect of the conflict, trying to comprehend how a species they had disregarded could have caused such harm. Their conceit had rendered them blind, but now that they had to face the indisputable truth of their defeat, they were compelled to address the flaws in their own strategies and presumptions. Debates on reprisal became heated, as some advocated a prompt and powerful reaction, while others warned against undervaluing humanity for the second time. The leaders of the Empire realized that they could not afford to fail again, and that a determined response was required. Though momentous, it had come at a price. Earth's victory was well calculated. Humanity was aware that this conflict was only one phase of a much bigger one, and they had demonstrated their capacity to protect themselves. The galaxy was huge, and the Empire's influence went well beyond this one conflict, but humanity's resolve had only strengthened. Having personally seen the strength of unification, approach, and resiliency, they were equipped to handle any obstacles that could arise. The knowledge gained by Project Firestorm would guide them in developing their plans and strengthening their defenses. As they prepared for the possible retribution of the Galactic Empire, the defeat served as a reminder and a turning point, proving that power was determined by their ability to adapt and be creative, rather than just by numbers or technology. Confronted with the fact that they could no longer ignore humanity as more than just a barrier, the Empire's once flawless and impregnable reputation now carried the scar of its contact with Earth. While the galaxy waited to see what would happen next, it became evident that humanity's defiance had permanently altered the Empire's mentality. This conflict would have far-reaching consequences for humanity, extending well beyond the borders of Earth and the Empire. Humanity had cemented their position as a force that could defend itself and challenge the established quo in the galaxy. It was a moment of humility for the Empire, acknowledging a weakness in their supremacy they could no longer disregard. Though the fight was over, the conflict was still ongoing on both sides. The leaders of the Galactic Empire struggled to comprehend the extent of their fleet's loss as they limped back toward the closest area under Empire control, each remaining ship a beaten relic of what had once been a sign of indisputable authority. The leaders mentally reenacted the battle in silence, finding it difficult to comprehend how an apparently weaker adversary had planned such a catastrophic result. When the fleet eventually arrived at an Empire outpost, they were greeted with pride and a lower status within the Empire. The shock and despair of the tragedy swiftly spread, igniting a mix of perplexity, terror, and rage among the ranks. The commanders presented their report reluctantly, respecting the human strategy. Every detail felt like a further setback, and some commanders, who had previously maintained an unwavering trust in the Empire's supremacy, were compelled to acknowledge they had misjudged their adversary in ways they never thought possible. Leadership used to conquering without repercussions was suddenly confronted with the agonizing reality that their authority was not as definitive as they had previously believed. Throughout the galaxy, whispers spread as Earth's victory echoed, inspiring civilizations that had previously been subjected to the Empire's oppression. Motivated by the notion that they might resist, humanity's triumph turned into a narrative that inspired others and began to permeate other universes. As the oppressed started to think about their own potential, a newfound hope began to build silently but steadily. Humanity's defiance had triggered something much bigger than anyone could have predicted, the start of a change in the Empire's power dynamics. This setback was more than a lost fight, it struck a blow to their core. Senior officials gathered in private sessions, discussing the specifics of the struggle in tense and angry tones, analyzing each choice and strategy in a desperate attempt to understand their failure. Blame was transferred from one person to another in an effort to preserve reputations, but beneath the finger-pointing and rage, an uncomfortable reality surfaced. The Empire's rigid ideologies had exposed them to an adversary willing to go beyond traditional strategies, and their excessive reliance on overwhelming force had prevented them from seeing the value of adaptation, a weakness humanity had exploited with deadly precision. Determined to restore their image, the Empire's leaders vowed that this defeat would not go unacknowledged. They used revenge as a rallying cry and an opportunity to repair their damaged authority, funding a counteroffensive and assembling fleets from far-off areas equipped with more devastating power. Engineers worked around the clock, analyzing battle data to counter humanity's strategies. Every facet of Earth's defense plan was examined and studied in detail. The Empire made it clear they would not rest until Earth had been humbled, ensuring humanity learned a lesson for having the audacity to challenge their authority.